So Valerie, this new king, he's kind of at the bottom of his life. I mean, all these things have happened to him, and full of disappointment and depression. Does something happen to help him get through that?
Well, the new king decides that the old king should learn from his experiences and see life from the peasant's point of view.
Okay.
And so the new king, King Langward, sends the old king, Burkhart, to live in a village and learn the hard life of the peasants and give him the opportunity to see life from a different perspective and hopefully change.
Now, you mentioned their names. The new king, what was his name again?
Langward.
Langward. And was that difficult, making up all these names and places? And
Actually, in some ways, that was the hardest part, is coming up with the names.
Huh. And Valerie, did you just wake up one morning and say, I've got the story? Or did it take a lot of work in developing and designing this whole new place?
Well, actually, I wrote A Quest of the King and Three Kingdoms of Alessandria before I wrote Blood of Ancient Kings. And so I knew where it had to end. And so it was writing the beginning. And so I knew where I was going with it. I just had to determine what the path had been.
Oh, I see. Okay, so we've got this new king. He's teaching the old king a life lesson. And is there more to the story?
There is. Actually, both of them, being new fathers, experience the joys and frustrations of parenthood.
I've got to interrupt you right there. So these characters, are you writing these based upon my neighbor lady next door, or my grandma, or my own father, or how did you do that?
There might be aspects of their personalities that someone might recognize as their own, but I didn't specifically base any character off of a specific person.
Now, that's pretty unique in writing, isn't it?
Some do, some don't. It just depends on the author.
Tell us a little bit more about the old king and this life lesson that he's being taught by the new king.
Well, he is living in a village where nobody wants him there, really, and he's trying to raise his daughter, and so she has a really hard life in that she has no friends.
And her name is?
Arita.
Arita.
And Arita, finally, she's at one point injured, and the new king King Langward has to come and tell the villagers, look, she's not being punished, she just really has no one else. And as she grows up, she starts exchanging letters with King Langward's son.
So then this develops into an arranged marriage?
Well, actually, that's the interesting part. One of the messages gets delivered by a soldier, and she immediately is attracted to the soldier.
So then this is where we see the love triangle come into play.
Exactly. She loves and admires the prince from her writing back and forth to him.
Her arranged marriage is to the prince.
Yes. But then
she's attracted to the soldier.
She's attracted to the soldier, and he's very attracted to her. And that develops really into a true love. And yet they both know that she has this arranged marriage. They just don't know to whom. And so the conflict is they're not supposed to be in love, and yet they are.
So there's this grand reveal in Blood of the Ancient Kings, and we have this heroine, Arita. Does she follow through in the rest of the series, in the Quest of the King and the Three Kingdoms? Is that about her then?
It her family line does follow through in
Okay.
the other books, and she is in both Quest of the King and Three Kingdoms of Alessandrine.
Okay, so let's talk about the second book in the series, Quest of the King. What's the main, if you could give me a 20-second synopsis of the storyline, what would it be?
Well, there is Lord Dracona, who is a man who has a dark past, and he will live 1,000 years. So here's a man who's living alone in an empty town, in an empty castle, and he's bound by his title to remain. He meets a lovely young woman and her father in the forest, saves the father's life, but demands that she come live in his castle. The conflict there is that he believes she will live only 100 years, which would leave him again alone all too soon.
Okay, so he's destined to live 1,000 years, and she's, in his mind, destined to live 100 years. He's afraid of falling in love with and getting his heart broken, basically, again, when she passes.
Exactly.
Okay, and so that's what Quest of the King is about, and then the family line follows up and kind of finishes up with the third in the series. Is that the idea?
That is the idea. We find out the destinies of many of the characters in Blood of Ancient Kings in Three Kingdoms of Alessandrine.
Okay, so that kind of wraps up the series, and then you've got your other series,
Under the Dragon Moon.
Under the Dragon Moon. Okay.
And so it begins with Journey Home to a New World, followed by Return of the Dragon Moon, and then the people of the Red Cliffs.
Perfect. Well, Valerie, we were excited to have you here today to talk about your titles. As an author, is there anything that you would like to say to, say, an aspiring author that's out there watching the program today?
Definitely keep writing. There may be things that you write that never get published, and that's all right. But it's important you keep writing, and you never know when you'll come up with something that is destined to be published.
Now, you've had a number of, shall we say, stumbling blocks that have been placed in front of you with your own writing that you've had to have overcome that have made you a better writer. Is that not true?
That is true, and a lot of it is just trying to get published, and that's one thing that I found help with through the other members of the Author's Corner, who has a cart over at Provo Town Center Mall, and it's a good place for small independent published writers to market their books, and also to group together to get involved with different shows. For example, we've been asked to participate in the Renaissance Fair that will be at Thanksgiving Point, September 27th and 28th. And then we also help set up book signings and such. And so it's a good place for people that are writing or want to get published to really find out more information.
Okay, and that's called the Author's Corner. Is there a way for people to get hold of you if they want to join this group?
Yes, actually, if they go to V.J.O. Gardner.com or ancient-kings.com, there's a link to the Author's Corner information there. There's a second website that is there for all of the Author's Corner people, plus any independent writer that feels that they need assistance or just support.
Okay.
And that's a good place to go.
And again, that's for aspiring authors as well as previously published authors, if you so desire.
Exactly.
Go to this Author's Corner, get some support, get some help, in your writing or in your publishing, or instead of trying to do it on your own, use the knowledge that other people have already gained.
Definitely.
You know, that's part of the program, or part of the purpose of our program, Turning the Page, is to give authors like yourself opportunity to get in front of the public and let people know that you're out there. A lot of people want to meet authors, or want to pick up, you know, new titles, or shall we say non-mainstream books, stuff that's not necessarily available everywhere. They want to meet somebody who's, you know, writing unique or writing different than everyone else. And so, Valerie, thank you for being in our program today. Is there any last words you'd like to add today?
Well, just that I know these days people get so busy, and it's good to be able to meet with the author and ask them questions. Does the book support their moral values and such? Because these days we have so little time for ourselves that it's good to know that you're going to be reading something that you will enjoy and not feel uncomfortable with.
Welcome to Turning the Page. I'm host Dommie Morris of Confetti Antiques and Books. And today we have with us Valerie Gardner, who appears today in her favorite dress. Valerie, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Valerie is a local author from Springville who has written a number of books. Her first book is Blood of the Ancient Kings. And going back to Valerie's favorite dress, she's dressed up in medieval attire to help promote her books, which are a fantasy medieval setting based upon, you know, kind of that English countryside, French countryside, king's lordship kind of a time. And really, it's her favorite kind of attire. Valerie, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I felt to promote my books, it would be best to dress the part, and so I made this dress so that I would have it for signings and events like this. And it's different to walk down the street and see the expressions of people and see what they think about it and ask me about my books. So it's been useful.
Now, Valerie, one of the favorite things I've seen in your books is the blood, the sex, all that stuff is very, very low key. Can you tell us a little bit about why you decided to write that way?
Well, in a way, I didn't actually intentionally do that, but it just didn't need it. I didn't feel that it needed to be that graphic, that it's best to let the reader's imagination fill in between the lines according to their age and experience.
So you've decided more to write a good story and let that tell the other part of the story, rather than use the blood and the gore and the sex to tell the story.
Exactly.
Okay, so now you're a local lady. You're from Springville. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how or why you decided to get into writing?
Well, I wound up with a lot of time on my hands due to the circumstances of my husband's job, and I just began writing. It's something I had always enjoyed doing. So I began writing and just couldn't quit.
Do you have a passion for it?
I very much enjoy it.
You have, how many books do you have total?
I have 6 in print currently.
That's quite a library of titles that you have. And there's a series? Is that how it works?
There's 2 series. There's the Ancient Kings series, which includes Blood of Ancient Kings, Quest of the King, and 3 Kingdoms of Alessandrine. And then I have the second series here that is the Under the Dragon Moon series, which includes Journey Home to a New World, Return of the Dragon Moon, and The People of the Red Cliffs. And they actually kind of branch off of Quest of the King for that series.
Now, as I said earlier, these are kind of a medieval fantasy.
Right.
It's not historical necessarily. It's just a story that you have, I'm going to use the word dreamed up. Is that correct?
Exactly.
And who should enjoy these? Are they written for any audience, or what's the intent?
Well, they're mostly young adults, but anyone 10 and up would enjoy them. They're something that you don't have to be embarrassed reading to your kids. And for example, I actually gave a copy to my parents for Christmas. So it's something that I am not ashamed to share with members of my family. And so I feel that's the best kind of literature, is something that you can share with others.
Well, now, again, being from Springville, a local author here, how well have your books been received by the general public?
Pretty well. Pretty well. Most people quite enjoy them. I got some feedback from a gal in Wyoming that she really enjoyed the first book, and
that's this Blood of the Ancient Kings?
Blood of Ancient Kings, and she enjoyed it so well that when she found out I had 2 more in that series, she insisted on getting them. And then when she graduated and went off to college and basic training for the Air Force, she took the 3 books with her because they were her favorites. And I got a frantic email from her father saying her mother wasn't finished with the books and decided she had to have her own copies.
Oh, well, that's exciting for a new author to have that kind of response from someone.